Appliances don't last very long anymore, do they? They're like the William Henry Harrison of home goods. But just like President Harrison, a little bit of care could make any appliance or presidency last a bit longer. Are you maintaining your appliances properly? I'm going to give you 4 or 5 tips for every type of appliance in your household that we usually cover on our channel, and why each of the things that we suggest in the video will actually matter when it comes to making your machine last a bit longer. Let's see how many of these things you actually knew for these machines. Let me know any other maintenance tips in the comments too, so we can build the ultimate maintaining video together. But first, let's go to the basement and check in on the laundry pair and see how we can make it last a lot longer before we hit this fridge, because this is a little bit newer than the washer dryer set downstairs. Washing machines used to last for decades. Now, not so much. But many of the problems that actually crop up on machines can be due to user error or accident. So here are a few big things that can help you out to make any machine, regardless of the brand, last a little bit longer. One thing that you have to do is empty your pockets. Remove anything that would be able to fall into your clothes washer during the wash. Since your washer is designed to move your clothes around a lot to clean them, anything that's inside is going to fall out, and there's a high chance that it'll eventually end up somewhere that you just don't want it to go. This is all the change that has come out in the past week in this washer. Not just coins, but also puzzle pieces, some Cocoa Melon stickers, all kinds of things. Sometimes the coins get stuck in the wash plate or impeller system, but even worse, if they make it to the drain pump, it will really start to mess with the pump system that would cause a lot of expensive problems. You've probably seen a lot of my videos on how to replace different drain pumps for different models, and the big issue right now is that sometimes if drain pumps get shorted out, not only does it destroy the pump, it destroys the control board, and that turns a $50 to maybe $100 fix into a $500 fix, and we're seeing drain pumps short the boards out on many more brands than we used to, because they're cheapening the electronics and making them more ubiquitous with the drain pump. And this leads you to the maintenance that you would want to do to keep a drain pump clean. Check and see if your washer has a drain pump catch or filter on it. Typically top loads like this don't have them very often, but most front loaders do. Drain the excess water from the washing machine using a small bucket. If you got to use your drain hose like this, put it to the ground, you can empty it that way, and then open up the catch and then remove any sort of debris from the filter and clean it out. Another really common problem or situation is how many clothes should you put in a washing machine. You don't want to do too little clothes because you don't want to run the machine twice for the same amount of laundry you have, and overloading is just as bad. Your clothes often won't get cleaned properly, and it puts way more stress on the suspension system, which will make your washing machine break quicker, and that's regardless of style of unit. On a front load washer, the hand trick is a good measure. If you can fit your hand vertically in the tub, one full hand, then it's probably at a good level. If it is not a front load washer, the best way to consider it is to make sure that your clothes are about 2 inches from the top of the agitator if you have a pull-based agitator. If it's an impeller, about half full is what you want, but the manufacturing specifications are going to vary from machine to machine, so make sure to read your user manual, which is what you should do with everything. Now the thing is, manufacturers design these machines for the kind of load size that's specified in the manuals, so going over the recommended weights and volumes again will break the machine faster than it normally would, and honestly the sizes of a lot of machines can be deceptive. Just because it's a 5 or 6 cubic foot machine doesn't mean you can fill it with 5 or 6 cubic feet of laundry. Just read the manufacturer's manual to confirm exactly how much will fit optimally. Another part of not overloading your machine is making sure that you reserve your heaviest items, your jeans, your comforters, blankets, jackets, anything that's going to get really heavily laden with water, and use them in their own separate lower volume load. This will make sure that the washing machine doesn't overload itself by weight rather than by volume. Another big thing that people probably miss out on is a monthly cleaning cycle on their washing machine. This may be the most important step of all of them, because a lot of gunk is going to inadvertently build up in your washing machine when you just normally run your clothes. Every month I would run the tub clean cycle on your washing machine if you have it. If not, a hot, heavy duty load with a cleaning agent. There's a brand called Fresh out there that is one of the most common cleaners. You could use vinegar, citric acid, sodium bicarbonate, or even a mixture of those things. Now for us, we typically just use in the washing machines that we clean, fix, and sell, we formulate our own wash bomb cleaner, but really all that is just all the different chemicals I just mentioned mixed in a bulk, cheap format. Anything is better than nothing. You can even use bleach on some machines as well for that cleaning cycle. Now, if you own a front load washing machine, it's critical that you keep the door slightly open to prevent mold from forming on the gasket or in places that you can't see. Many stores have devices that can handle this. Otherwise, you can always put some trash in the door to keep anything open. Maybe like most of Metallica's albums from the 90s, just to keep that door open. Now, my final washing machine idea is to use a lot less detergent and even less fabric softener. Big Wash doesn't want you to know this, but you only need about 1 tablespoon for a medium-sized load and 2 tablespoons for a large 12-pound load. More soap means more chemicals hiding in the tub and pump system between cleanings, and it results in a shorter lifespan. And fabric softener, well, it's even worse for your machine. Cleaning the inside of a washer is super nasty when we have to refurbish them because oftentimes you know when someone's using fabric softener and it messes everything up on the inside, making things harder to get refurbished. Use white vinegar instead and it will do the same thing and eat away at the stuff that your old fabric softener left behind. Now let's go over to our dryer. If you properly maintain one, a good unit is going to last anywhere from minimum 10 years, but up to 20. This LG right here is a 2009 and it's still running pretty good. And I think you can get a pretty good amount of time out of yours if you go with an LG among all the other brands. My opinion is that they're probably the best, most reliable dryer on the market for what you're going to find at big box stores. If you watched my LG teardown videos, you know that they build their laundry systems pretty well compared to the other brands. This isn't to say that they're going to outlive poor maintenance practices, but unlike other brands, they're going to be a little bit more failure tolerant than certain other brands on the market, and LG's running a few sales right now, including a 2-year or even 3-year extended warranty. You can get the 3-year extended warranty for $25 and the 2-year extended warranty for just $1. I'm going to link a few of my favorite LG laundry items in the description and tag them. If this ends up dying, I'm going to probably swap this out with a DLHC 5502 dryer and a matching washer that I did the review on. I was really happy with it. But going back to this particular machine, what would you do if you wanted to make it run longer? The first thing that you want to do, and it's pretty obvious, is just to clean the lint trap. Obviously, this is something that you have to do every time, but the key is not just the lint trap housing. And here's how I would do it. After each load, I would go ahead and simply run my fingers across, well, there's tons of lint in this one apparently. A load of clothes just got done in it. You'd want to go ahead and just remove this from the filter like you would any other time and put it in a waste can. But the thing is, that's not going to be enough. And to prove that point, and we're going to do it in future videos, is to use an anemometer which detects temperature and hot air, probably really good for politicians, to see what's going to happen to a dryer when you actually clean it out all the way. And how you would get best performance out of a dryer for a long period of time is to wash the filter, the one that you ran your fingers over, about every 30 to 50 loads. Residual particles can get from the washing machine in your dryer filter that you can't see, especially if you use dryer sheets, which really aren't that great for the machine either. The unseen particles, whether it's soap or the dryer sheets, will restrict airflow in the machine and cause it to run longer than it needs to dry your clothes. Longer run times mean more stress on your heating element, your motor, and all your other systems in the dryer. So a properly venting dryer will make your clothes get done faster, save you money, and again, less wear and tear on the machine, which means a longer lifespan. And your dryer is going to probably use some of, if not the most electricity in your house from things that are not your air conditioner. You'll run between 2 and 3 kilowatt hours per load of clothes, which adds up over the course of 10 years. This is doubly important for condenser or ventless dryers when it comes to cleaning them, because you have one filter and the condenser coils to clean, and if it's done properly, they'll last a long time too. If you don't, you end up with like what we saw with the washer dryer combo that we just got into our store from one of the last videos. We had a customer that returned it used to Lowe's or one of the big box stores because they never cleaned the air filter, and the washer dryer combo stopped drying clothes, and it ended up starting to damage the compressor and the tubing, you could see that it had started getting really hot, causing the machine to degrade. Another issue with your dryer that you can run into is the vent system and how it is set up behind your machine. You really don't want to use a super thin, flexible dryer vent duct like the one that's right here. The reason for that is that the grooves in the ductwork can trap lint inside more easily than a smooth, rigid or semi-rigid ductwork. The less flexible it is, the smoother it is for air to get out, which means the dryer has less of a chance or less of a risk of overheating, causing a thermal fuse to pop. And that's one of the things on maintenance we want to avoid, is to have a fuse overheat and break. Cleaning your dryer vent is something that you would want to do probably once a year, and the area behind it, to make sure that your air is going to run smoothly and effortlessly as possible. And again, I'm going to create a much longer video on how to properly clean the dryer vent, but the short answer is you want to use a flexible vacuum hose that is going to be somewhat reasonable size, that's going to get into all the creases, both inside the unit as well as the ductwork, as well as a very long brush set. This is a very short condenser brush. They make them in much larger brush sets for your vent, and we'll have a video on that. And if you can sweep all the lint out, it reduces the chance of a fire hazard, and again will make the machine run less amount of time to properly dry your clothes. And then the last step for your dryer is, of course, like the washing machine, just don't overload it. Your dryer needs air to circulate to remove the moist air from your unit. This is why dryer balls can end up helping clothes get dried faster. They add space during the tumbling action, and the greater airflow results in shorter run times. One of the worst customers my business ever had ended up getting very angry at a washer dryer set that we sold them. It wasn't washing or drying properly. I ended up servicing their units, which was almost an hour and a half away. They worked perfectly for me when I tested everything, but when I wasn't there and the problem popped up because I realized after the fact she was overloading her clothes, she threatened the Attorney General on my business, so we ended up taking the set back and lost a lot of money, but we sold the set within 3 days, and it's been out there for about 5 years now without a problem. And that was one of the worst stories in the world that I've ever had when it comes to overloading clothes in a washer or dryer set. So please don't overload them, washer or dryer. With all of these ideas, how is the airflow now looking with our Animeter once we've done everything between the filter wipe down and a lot? Well, this is what has ended up happening, and you can see that again in the other video in a long-term performance. Now the next step we have isn't for just one appliance, it's for everything in your house, and we got to get out of the laundry room because this is one I'm really excited about. One critical thing is that this panel's missing is a whole home surge protector. One of the worst things that can happen to a modern appliance is a power surge or voltage spike that could hit your home from storms, wind, anything that could allow the power to drop and come back very abruptly. Voltage issues are notorious for killing computerized devices, and usually appliances are actually one of the most vulnerable systems in your house that is going to fail when you don't have proper surge protection. Often you may have, though, a surge protector on a refrigerator, which is great and is going to help, but are all your other appliances protected? I doubt that. You don't see very many surge protectors, if any at all, for 240 volt appliances like the dryer we just looked at or the stove that's upstairs, and they're just as vulnerable as your refrigerator. A whole home surge protector is extremely cheap, with most being in the area of between $60 and $100 for the cheapest grade of unit that works very well, and it could be installed on a panel as a DIY project. Whole home surge suppression is so important, it's now a part of US building codes as of 2020 that every panel has one installed in any new build, and it's one of the few things that truly makes sense, I think, for modern building codes. You can get way beefier versions of a whole home surge protector that are beyond $100 that are EMP and solar flare grade in terms of those spikes. The key is buying one that's going to fit for your box. Individual appliance surge protectors are still going to help, and I think they're still useful on refrigerators and washing machines, but this is a cheap way to ensure that every computer that an appliance has in your household doesn't get randomly destroyed by a power outage. And again, they're quite easy to install. I'm not here to show you how to install those. There are some other great YouTube videos that show you, so I will probably link to a few in the description. I've spent quite a bit of time on refrigerator maintenance, and if you haven't seen any of those videos, here it is. The most important thing that you can do when it comes to your refrigerator is to keep the air flowing. The most expensive part on your refrigerator isn't up top, it's down beneath or behind the refrigerator, which is the compressor. The key is to make sure that it runs as infrequently or as low speed as possible, which will save you more money on electricity, but will allow the compressor to have a longer lifespan because it's not running as hard. To do this, you have to make sure that the airflow on your refrigerator is good. The first way you may or may not know how to do this is cleaning your refrigerator condenser coils, the metal fins I just showed you. To do this, you could use a brush to scrub them clean, or if they are a thinner style of metal and are prone to being bent by a brush, you would instead use a vacuum cleaner with a flexible attachment. This is one of the ways to help keep your air flowing. Every manufacturer has a set of guidelines on what the clearances at the top and sides and behind the refrigerator should be. Usually, on average, it's 1 inch of room on each side of the refrigerator and behind it as well, sometimes up to 2 inches, but also up top. If you can, don't use your top of the refrigerator as a medicine cabinet or a treat center. If you overwhelm the top of your refrigerator and there isn't easy access to airflow, guess what? It's not going to help your refrigerator, and this is especially the case if you have the style of alcove that you would slide your refrigerator into that would have cabinets up top, which this fortunately doesn't. Next, the other thing that you want to do is make sure that all the gaskets in your refrigerator are always free of ice, gunk, or anything else that would be debris for everyday use. Make sure to inspect the gaskets of your refrigerator for rips, tears, or separation. You can use 2 parts water and 1 part vinegar to clean the gaskets if you get spills on them. If you find areas where there are damage, you could replace the gasket, or if you want to do something a little bit cheaper or more affordable, you could use wax paper and some silicone, food grade RTV sealant to seal any damages to the door temporarily. It's not going to be a great fix, but it will be a more affordable fix, especially if you can't find a replacement gasket for an older refrigerator. Don't use anything sharp to clean the doors of the refrigerator, even if it's hidden behind a rag. Just use a toothbrush or cloth. Don't worry about separating the gaskets to clean them. Wiping them should be sufficient because you want to make sure that the magnets that are inside the gaskets can adhere to the doors. Now, if you choose to have indoor ice and water in your refrigerator, you have some extra responsibilities because these are hard to take care of in terms of reliability. My suggestion would be to tackle mineral buildup that could be caused in the chute. And what happens with the chute is if it becomes clogged, it could allow moist air from the outside or around your house into the ice maker, which will cause all sorts of damage to the ice making system that could cost you a lot of money. You can use a few different things to clean between the chutes as well as the gaskets in the ice maker housing itself. A 50-50 solution of water and vinegar, and we talk about vinegar a lot in this, will usually eat away at any sort of mineral buildups. What I would do is soak a paper towel in a vinegar water solution and let it rest on the inside of the chute for about an hour or 2. This would allow the mixture to soak into the chute, hopefully removing some of the buildup, and that also goes for the gaskets on the ice maker on the inside of the refrigerator if you have that indoor ice. Although modern refrigerators will have alarms if the doors are open too long, another thing you always want to make sure of is ensure that the doors are, well, solidly closed. If the doors are not properly closed, it would allow moist, warm air to get inside the refrigerator, causing all sorts of problems if it goes for a long period of time. The moisture will often accumulate wherever there is cold, and it can cause all sorts of issue with frost on gaskets, or more likely excess ice behind the evaporator panel, which will require more electricity and defrost time to heat up and remove the ice and moisture during the defrost cycles, which takes more electricity, which takes more strain on your refrigerator. For stoves, there are a few things that you want to do to keep them lasting longer. The things that you really want to take care of are going to vary a little bit by model, but ultimately what matters is the controls, the oven, and then the top, especially if it's a glass top. Other maintenance tips are going to vary a little bit between coil and gas as well. And we're mainly focusing at least on the smooth tops today because those are the most popular, I think, in the US and worldwide right now, and it's, well, what I have in the kitchen. First, maintaining a good looking glass top isn't going to necessarily change the longevity, but it looks nicer and cleaner, and may allow other family members to put up with a good working unit a little bit longer, because this one will probably last a lot longer than a brand new one. But it can get dingy, and that is a big problem. And if you've ever had stuff boil over, you need to clean it up. The best thing that you can do is make a mixture of baking soda and hot water, and then use a razor scraper to clean this up. It takes about 10 minutes and it makes it look quite a bit better, because you can see what it looked like before we started filming this video and what happened after about 10 minutes. It was pretty good results for just a small amount of effort using this homemade cleaning solution. Another key is dealing with a cloudy glass top, which this one has. It's been in use for quite a few years. This is a much more difficult problem to fix, and it's not something this video is going to fully address, but the key to that is making sure that you buy high quality pots like Caviar Moon Rocks or Wi-Fi OG. Oh, wrong video. But you want to avoid using aluminum pans. They can fuse to the glass, causing cloudiness. Avoid porcelain enameled pans or pans that have round bottoms. The smaller the points of contact, the more rapidly the pan is going to heat up, causing the enamel, especially in those cheaper pots and pans, to fuse to the stove, causing the cloudiness and dinginess. Going to the stove top, one other key here is that you want to make sure that you don't keep anything heavy or metal or heavy metal above your stove. You want to avoid anything that could drop potentially up here onto your glass top stove. It could accidentally shatter it. I've never had a problem with any glass top stove I've ever dealt with, but that's because I've always paid attention to the metal that's on top of the stove. But the crazy thing is, you don't want to just worry about what's up top, possibly in cabinets or shelving. You want to make sure that you watch out for what could be simply on the very top where the control board is. Even a small drop from only a foot can cause a crack and damage on a stove. I've seen salt and pepper shakers take huge chunks out of the glass before, costing the same amount of money as any fully shattered stove would be. Another thing you need to look at, and I'm not really the biggest fan of self-cleaning modes on stoves. I usually just clean them by hand, which is probably outrageous for some people. But if you do have self-cleaning, there are concerns that you have to take into account when you run it. There are thermal fuses on the back of most stoves. And if you do run self-clean, the key is making sure that you have airflow behind the stove to move away the radiated heat from the expensive fuses, again, during that cleaning mode. If you have a hooded fan like this one, you just want to make sure to turn it on when you are running that self-cleaning mode. But if you don't have a hooded fan, or running any sort of pedestal or box fan near the rear of the unit, and if hopefully there's an inch or two of clearance, this will help cycle or circulate the heat up and away from the self-cleaning mode that would cause that fuse to trip. It's a small fuse that typically isn't very expensive to replace, but the cost to service it as well as pull out your oven to do it can get very expensive. And it kind of goes without saying, at least you would think, but it's happened way too often for me not to mention it, is if you have a bug problem in your home, you're going to have an appliance problem. And this is for any appliance in your home, but especially the stove. It will be the first to die, because if you have a roach infestation, they will target the warm but not overly hot areas of the stove, and the control board is the perfect place for them to go. It will be the main target in your home, but any sort of electronics, roaches will find and love to infest. Keeping your house bug-free is a huge health issue, but if you are a garbage tier landlord, guess what? You're going to have to replace your appliances too. And in my experience, there's no real easy way to repair an appliance that has roach poo on it. Yes, you can replace the control boards, but it's likely that other systems and subsystems have been compromised too. And when we ever have to replace a board on an appliance that has roach damage to it, we demand the landlord or the customer sign a waiver saying it's not our responsibility if and when it fails again, because it will. And this goes for dryers too, as well as stoves. When it comes to the terminal block on the back of the unit, make sure that you have a strain relief on it. It is a metal clip that holds the power cord tightly into place near the terminal block. Over time, the cord will pull downward due to gravity and general use in operation. If the cord and the nuts that are connected to each other end up separating, it will cause the connections to start heating up over use as they slowly separate. This can eventually cause too much strain on the connection, which will result in the cord or terminal block or both and the wiring getting melted. The service call to fix that can be very expensive, as opposed to the $5 or $3 strain relief that generally comes with most power cords when you buy them new. For dishwashers, there are a few things that you can do to keep them quite happy. If you don't want to have one quite like this one, I have found that roses, a bottle of wine, and a really nice home-cooked meal tends to work pretty well for most dishwashers. But if that isn't enough, you can do something to treat them to not having to do, well, dishes at all. And that should keep them happy and running pretty well. But in reality, if your dishwasher has a filter on it, make sure to clean it out after every load of dishes. If you don't, it makes it much harder for the dishwasher to cycle water through to clean your dishes, and it will also cause strain on the pump to pump the water out of the system as well, which will extend your cleaning times, or it just won't simply clean your dishes very well. Some units forego the traditional filter and instead have a grate and chopper system on them to dispose of the leftover food particles on the plates. But the goal should be to remove as many of the thicker, heavier particles during any sort of food scraping you do before you throw them in the dishwasher. The spray arm nozzles also need maintained every 6 to 9 months. Depending on your water supply, you could have hard water or other minerals that will build up on the nozzles. This will degrade how the water sprays inside your dishwasher, leading to less clean dishes. Like your washing machine, you could use a dishwasher cleaner in your pre-rinse. Dishwashers offer things such as a fresh. It works very well. Such a cleaner is going to remove any sort of buildup that would be hidden inside the unit that would cause bad odor or other particulate buildups in the pump or valves and internal hoses, as well as the general area of the entire tub. It will remove lime scale, soap scum, and other residues that could otherwise cause long-term problems with your dishes and your dishwasher. If you don't have a fresh, you could use the wash bomb that my company makes, or simply a cup of white vinegar or straight citric acid would work as well, just using a hot either tub cleaning cycle if your unit has it, or just a simple hot cycle would work with no dishes inside and just the solution. One last thing for dishwashers is if you have a plastic tub like this one and you're thinking about throwing it out due to some sort of buildup of stains, I've seen benzoyl peroxide do wonders to help care of stained areas. Decades ago, manufacturers offered it as a rinse aid that hasn't been around for a while, but ironically, acne cream has the same active ingredients in it, and you could use a small amount of that, say a teaspoon or two, in the pre-rinse and then run that without anything in it, and it should actually take care of any of the stains inside your plastic tub. But using a high quality dishwasher detergent and or pre-wash should generally prevent that buildup in general going forward. So make sure you use a higher quality pre-rinse as well as decent detergent, and it should solve most of those buildup problems before they happen. For the last appliance in our 1990s Apple kitchen house tour, we are dealing with the microwave. There are a few tips to make yours last longer, even though it's probably the most vulnerable of your throwaway appliances. One of the simple things is just cleaning stains quickly before they set in would help you with the aesthetics to make sure that it lasts longer, so no one wants to throw it out just because, again, it doesn't match the Apple decor in your 1990s kitchen. But beyond that, make sure that if you have an over-the-range microwave, which this is not what that is, make sure that you run any sort of exhaust fan to catch moisture and fumes when you are using your stove to cook. Well, why is that the case? Because it will work to keep the moisture away from the electronics in your microwave that pretty much every unit has now. They usually are not protected very well and are insanely expensive to replace. Usually if they go bad, you'll end up throwing away the microwave instead of replacing or servicing it. The average control board on a microwave, even if it's a cheap throwaway microwave, is almost the cost of the microwave itself, usually hundreds of dollars. Inspect to see also if your microwave has a grease filter on it. It would usually be underneath on the left or right corner. Make sure to check and clean it out every few months, and that's especially for the OTR microwaves. I don't think the freestanding ones necessarily have those on them. If that filter gets clogged, it can cause a mess with airflow, which would again cause a shorter microwave lifespan. Some grease filters will need replaced, but most can just be soaked in hot water with dish soap to degrease them and reinstall them to the microwave. Another very important, probably the most important universal idea with keeping a microwave running, make sure that you understand how to open and close the door of your microwave. Never open the door when it is running to turn it off to get whatever you're wanting out right before it dings, or in the middle of it. The same goes also for closing it. Never slam the door closed. The door locks on every microwave are very sensitive. They pass high voltage through the door switches to make sure to cut the power when the microwave is running, because if the microwave is running when you open the door, it would cause a lot of health issues and you would get hurt. So when you open the door during cooking, it's going to put an extreme amount of electrical stress on the connections in that switch as it starts to break that connection. A replacement switch isn't expensive on most microwaves, but tearing the unit apart to fix it is usually a mess. Finally, it probably goes without saying, but don't run the microwave on empty or run it with metal on the inside. Either can cause a lot of issues with any microwave. Running an empty unit can overheat the unit quickly because there's nothing in it but air, causing the thermal fuse to trip. And running the unit with metal in it, well, I made a video a few years ago on what happens when you put an Arby's sandwich in it, and it didn't turn out very well for me or the microwave. And that's it for the video today. There are going to be more specific guidelines for each of your personal appliances. You may be surprised, but every appliance manual actually has most of this information in it to maintain your specific units. It's important that you read the manual because it will give you a lot of good ideas on how to get the most out of your unit, because the manufacturers usually use those guidelines to project the lifespan of the unit. So if a manufacturer says maybe a microwave is going to get 5 years out of the lifespan, that's assuming you're maintaining it properly. So if you don't, you may only get 2.5 if you just run it without thinking about it. And that goes again for every single appliance, especially washing machines. And remember, if you're considering replacing your washer dryer, consider LG Laundry, the sponsors of the video. They make a ton of great long-lasting laundry units. I just wish I could have had a newer set of long-lasting laundry before I shot this video, as the dryer was quite old, the washer not so much, but I'd prefer a nicer, newer LG. Oh well, have a great day.